This is a Fonzie Studio podcast. Welcome to Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and every week I'll share with you a tale and ancient wisdom of the native tribes of North America. I'll be joined by my cats, Dawa and Fonzie, who will undoubtedly make their presence known at some point, so I might as well just list them as co-hosts. We hope you'll enjoy the tales and wisdom, raise your vibration, and enrich your life with us every week. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the 75th episode of Tales from the First Nations. I'm your host, Jay Idle. Now, sometimes I select an animal that I want to discuss and then work very hard to find a single story that I can use to discuss them. Other times, however, I think, how about Raven? And I come up with 24 stories. That's a lot. And as you can see from the title and episode length, I'm not going to jam them all into one, but rather spread them out randomly throughout the year. I was drawn to the idea of ravens because I've been learning about Odin and his ravens, Hunin and Munin. Hunin means thought, and Munin means memory or mind. And the two of them fly across the 9 worlds every day and return to Odin to whisper what they have seen and heard. They represent the god's far-reaching awareness, intellect, and wisdom. Now, to the ancient Nordics, ravens represented wisdom and thought, as we see with Odin's ravens. They were linked to prophecy and unseen forces which shape our destiny. The presence of a raven could also signify observation or messages from the gods. They were also associated with battlefields where they fed on fallen soldiers, which symbolized both death and honor. So overall, they represented the mind of the gods, the watchers of fate, and the companions of death and wisdom. Across our Native American ancestors, however, they had varied representation and different beliefs. Among some tribes, a raven is often a creator being. In many stories, Raven brings light to the world, releases the sun, moon, or the stars, or even creates people. However, for other tribes, he was seen as a trickster and teacher. He was clever but more flawed as he acted out his impulses of greed and curiousness. His mistakes, however, shape the world and teach lessons of balance, humility, and consequences. Raven was also a shapeshifter that frequently transformed between bird and human in order to achieve his goals. He was also a knowledge bringer, but not in the same way as Odin. Among Native American tales, Raven is the actor and not the messenger. So rather than being all-knowing like Odin, he's often mischievous. The knowledge he brings isn't in the form of a message, but a lesson gained through experimentation. Raven is also more associated with creation and survival than with death. His stories explain why the world is the way it is, rather than providing wisdom. We have 4 short stories for you today, so let us begin with our first, How Raven Invented Fire. In the beginning, the world was a cold and dark place. The only light ever seen was that of the sun, but that never lasted long enough. The first people were cold at night, and many of the old couldn't last through the harsh winters. Back in those days, people and animals lived together peacefully. The animals were people back then, and they didn't take their present-day shape until much later. They were the creators. A council of the animals was called to try to do something about the cold problem. They all agreed that something must be done, but none could agree on what. After much debate, it was decided that someone had to go to the sun to try to bring fire back for the earth, for people. The only question now was who would do it. They went around the circle to decide who would get fire for the first people. This being Winter, Bear was too tired to undertake such a task. Wolf knew that if he went, there would be no one left to watch over people. Squirrel was too scattered to be of much help. Snake had no way of carrying anything. It was eventually decided that a bird would be the best suited for the task. Peacock was too self-obsessed and too worried that such a task might harm his feathers. Robin and Wren were both too small to make the long journey. Then they came around to Raven. He offered to do it. Now, it's important to note that in the first days, Raven didn't look anything like he did today. He had a straight beak, feathers of every color of the rainbow, and a melodic voice that was the envy of all the other birds. Now that it was settled who would do it, the question remained, how? Raven looked around, and he looked for tools, but he saw nothing but a few dead branches. Then inspiration struck. He picked up one of the longest branches and headed off toward the sun. He flew for 3 days and nights. When he finally got to the sun, he held the branch to the sun, and it started to smoke. Raven beat his wings a little, and before he knew it, the branch had caught fire. As Raven headed back to the earth and the first people, the fire slowly consumed the branch. As he neared the earth, the branch grew shorter and shorter. The smoke choked his lungs and made it difficult to see. The fire singed his feathers and burned away his beak. Raven finally made it back to the first people and gave them the branch. They just stared at him. Gone was his beauty and his voice. They were faced with a sooty, hoarse-sounding creature. They didn't know how to react, so they just ignored him and started cultivating fire. A great feast was held by people to celebrate this wondrous new thing, but when Raven showed up, they wouldn't let him near the table. They just threw scraps at him. This hurt Raven pretty bad, considering all that he went through to help out. So he wandered off into the woods alone. As he got deeper and deeper into the woods, he heard a voice calling his name. Raven, it said. He just ignored it. Raven, it insisted. What do you want from me? I have nothing else to give, he dismissed. What you did was very noble, the voice stated. Raven finally snapped out of it and realized that the voice belonged to the Creator. It may have been noble, but look at me. I'm black as night, my voice is choked, the people want nothing to do with me, he stated. I've been thinking about that, the voice said. So people don't forget your sacrifice. I won't give you back your original form. You will stay as you are from now on, black feathers, choked voice, and you will always scrounge for food to remind people of your sacrifice. But as recognition, your black feathers will reflect all the colors of the rainbow, like you once had. Your voice will strike a shiver to man to remind him of what he did to you. And your meat will be bitter, so you will never be hunted for food. And that's how people got fire, and why Raven looks like he does. What a sacrifice Raven made for us, and shame on our ancestors for dismissing him after his suffering. It was kind of Creator to reward him, and hopefully it teaches us all to reward those in our lives who sacrifice for us, and to be grateful for them. Raven is always hungry, always. Many of his stories have to do with his enormous appetite and the trouble it causes him. Here's one such story. Here is how Raven lost his beak. So Raven was out in the ocean trying to catch some fish. He managed to catch enough to feed a village, but he was still hungry. He looked around but couldn't see any more fish. He was about to give up when he saw a fisherman on a boat trying to catch some fish himself. The fisherman didn't really interest Raven that much, but the bait looked like it would be a tasty morsel. Now Raven knew he was faster than any man, so he didn't even think twice about it. He swam right over to the boat and just snatched the bait up. But Raven didn't realize that the fisherman was paying attention the whole time. As soon as he felt a pull on the line, he started to reel it in. This took Raven by surprise. He thought he was so clever that he wouldn't be caught. As soon as he realized that he was caught, he started struggling for all his worth. Eventually, the fisherman pulled so hard that Raven's beak pulled right off. The fisherman pulled the whole thing out of the water and picked it up. He just couldn't figure out what it was. While he was taking so long and looking at it, trying to figure out what this black thing he caught was, the raven flew up out of the water and onto the boat. He snatched the beak out of the confused fisherman's hand and stuck it back on. It wasn't until much later that Raven realized that it wasn't straight anymore, that it was all curved now, but he decided that he liked it better that way, and it's been that way ever since. Now we see why the raven has such a unique shape to his beak. It may have been quite an ordeal for him, but I agree that it looks pretty good this way. We've looked at Raven's intelligence and his appetite, but he's also noted for his temper and lack of patience. Here's a good example of that. This is how Raven made the world. Long ago, there was no world. When Raven was a fledgling, his father told him that one day he would be big and strong enough to create a world. This stuck with Raven. He liked the idea of being the creator of a world. So time went by and Raven got bigger and older and stronger. Eventually, he decided that he was big and strong enough to create a world. He wondered how to go about it and had many ideas, but none of them seemed to work. One day, he almost gave up and went flying out on the wind. While he was gliding around on the wind, inspiration struck. Raven went flying around and eventually found some dirt and rocks. He knew that they would be a good foundation for a world, but he just couldn't make them stick together. No matter what he tried to do, they just stayed dirt and rocks. He started kicking the rocks around in frustration and anger, and when he was finished, he realized he needed a drink. He went to where water was, and inspiration struck. He brought back some water to mix with the dirt and the rocks to make it all stick together. Raven worked on that mixture for a good long time, patting it down, smoothing it out, rolling it around, but it never stayed the way he wanted it to. It never stayed perfectly round. The mixture was inconsistent, all sorts of problems. Eventually, he got so frustrated with it that he just kicked the whole thing as hard as he could. A little while later, Raven went on to go pick it up and work on it a little more. But when he picked it up, it was all bumpy and dented, and not at all what he wanted. But he was so tired of working on it that he just said to hell with it, and left it as it was. And that's why the world isn't perfectly round, and why we have mountains and rivers and oceans. Patience is a virtue, but Raven is clearly one of us. I was working on something yesterday, and it said that it would take 1 to 2 hours to set. I tried to keep busy and not think about it, but after 45 minutes, I went to check on it. I told Dawa, I have many virtues, but patience isn't one of them. Fortunately, it had set up, and I was ready to move forward with my life, and that made me very happy. I don't think I'd have handled it like Raven if it wasn't done, but I too would have been anxious for the task to be completed. We have one more story for you today, The Young Man and the Ravens. This is not a traditional story, but rather a recent story written by a man named Charles P. White, and I hope that you enjoy it. There once was a man that enjoyed watching the black ravens fly around, play, squawk, and chatter. He enjoyed them so much he would climb trees just to be closer to them. For many months the ravens ignored the man, but after a while one of the ravens flew from a nearby tree and landed directly next to the man. In utter amazement, the bird spoke to the man and asked, "You've been watching us for a long time. You've tried to get close to us. Why do you do this?" The man replied, "I mean no harm. I've become enchanted with you and all your relatives. I enjoy the play, the squawking, and I wish to learn your language so I could understand more about you." Then the raven responded, "We are honored that you want to know us. As long as you do not cause harm, we will teach you our language." For many months, the ravens taught the man all about the language and how the ravens lived from day to day. The man became so educated that he knew everything that there was to know about the ravens. Many of the ravens saw the man and accepted him as a friend. One day, an older raven who was flying far over the man dropped a walnut perfectly on the man's head. It was done on purpose, and all the ravens almost fell off their branches laughing so hard the way they do. One raven was flying and was laughing so hard that he had to crash land right in front of the man. The man was feeling bad and was hurt by being made fun of, so he asked the raven in front of him, "Why are you all picking on me?" The raven stopped laughing and became very serious. "We thought you understood us, but apparently you don't. If you did, you would know that we are not mocking you. Well, maybe a little bit, but it's done in our way of having fun. We are playing with you, and that is all. It is not to be taken seriously. You should know us better." The man took some time to understand this, and over time, a few more practical jokes were played on the man, and he in turn pulled a few good ones on the birds. A good time was had by all, and the man became even closer to the ravens. Then another event occurred. A young raven swooped out of the sky and pecked the man on the head. Then another young raven swooped down and did the same thing. The man ran across the field and into the woods, but the ravens kept chasing him, and very skillfully they flew at high speeds through the woods, tormenting the man. Finally, the two stopped and started to yell mean words, fighting words at the man. Again, the man did not understand, but he knew the two ravens were very mad at him, so he decided to leave and let the ravens be. The man went away for many months. As he did his duties in his tribal village, he told the people all about his adventures and what he had learned about the ravens. Some listened with intent. Others just thought the man was a fool to study the ravens, so the villagers gave the man a new name of Blackfeather because of his close relationship to the birds. But the man objected and said, "I am no longer close to the raven people." From above, there was a squawking sound of a single raven. Some of the people looked up and were surprised that they could understand the raven. Others just looked around because they could hear nothing but squawking. The raven was speaking to the man and said, "It is true, you are closer to us than any human has ever come. You are close, but you still don't understand us fully. I invite you to return to us. Many miss you." Blackfeather started to follow the raven, but then stopped at the edge of the village. He looked around to make sure that none of the other Anishinaabe could hear, then asked the raven, "Why do you ask me back when the two ravens were fighting with me and were mean?" The raven landed at Blackfeather's feet and said, "See how little you understand us? The two young ravens did not fight with you because you are Anishinaabe. It is because they accepted you as a member of the raven people. You should know that we fight among ourselves too. It's part of our way of life. Instead of sulking and leaving, you should have fought back." Blackfeather stood in silence and said, "There is much about ravens I don't understand. Maybe we are two different people to ever understand each other. I should stop and return to my people in the village." The raven again shook his head and told Blackfeather, "That is your choice. But again, I tell you that you have come closer to us, raven people, than any other human. Would you throw this all away just because you can't understand us yet?" Blackfeather responded, "It's useless. How can I ever understand you? I can't even fly." 1,000 bursts of laughter were heard from all the surrounding trees, and Blackfeather knew that all the raven people were there, hiding and listening. "Of course you can't fly. You are Anishinaabe, and we are ravens, but we accept you as one of us. We play with you, we fight with you, we love you, and we want you back. We also recommend you don't try to fly in order to be like us, because then you would not be Anishinaabe nor a raven, but something else. We like you as an Anishinaabe that understands us as ravens. Join us or not, the decision is yours." Blackfeather returned to the Anishinaabe village and bid everyone farewell, because he had decided to live with the raven people. After all the farewells and such, he started to leave the village. All the Anishinaabe people were there to see him off, and high overhead was 1,000 ravens. Then from high above, one of the older ravens dropped a walnut shell, and again, with remarkable aim, plunked Blackfeather right on the head. All the ravens started laughing hard, and all the Anishinaabe were laughing too. Blackfeather laughed and looked up at the old raven and said, "Good one." Sometimes playing and joking around with friends is of as great a value as the serious moments we spend together. This is wise of the ravens and wise of us to learn. All of our stories and a lot of information today came from the indigenouspeople.net, and on their site there was a prayer to the raven that I wanted to end with. The prayer was credited to the Koyukon. Raven that is, raven that was, raven that will always be. Make prayers to the raven. Raven, bring us luck. It is with great respect and gratitude that I offer you my blessings and my thanks for sharing your journey with me and sharing your time with me on this podcast. I wish you well and look forward to sharing another story with you next week. Go in peace, return in peace, and may you be well. If you enjoy the podcast, please like us and review us in your podcast service and tell your friends to check us out too. All of today's stories come from indigenouspeoples.net and were listed as traditional stories, except our final story, Young Man and the Ravens, which was credited to author Charles P. White. For more great stories and legends, join me next week for another story here on Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and I'll talk to you next time. Music is provided by my dear friend Scott Brocklesby, and our podcast Image of the Moon was provided by Mark Lawton. We'll see you next time. All right, that's it. How'd we do, Dawa? Phones? Excellent. Then I'll share it.